All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to embark on what I can only describe as a slow, truly cinematic descent right into the hidden Earth. As an historian, I can tell you for a fact that the stories we usually read in our textbooks, they really only cover the world where the sun shines. But the real history, the raw, untouched, and honestly sometimes terrifying history, is buried deeply out of sight. We're going to explore the intensely stratified layers of London's subterranean world. We'll be looking at forgotten infrastructure, highly classified military fortresses, and some absolutely chilling ancient ruins resting directly beneath one of the busiest cities on the planet. I want you to just consider this reality for a moment. Every day, millions of people walk the bustling streets, completely oblivious to the dark, silent abyss, waiting just inches beneath their footsteps. Just think about that. Above ground, London is this deafening roar, right? Double-decker buses, Russian commuters, massive modern glass skyscrapers. But beneath the pavement, it's absolute eerie silence. There's literally a completely forgotten city existing right under the soles of our shoes, totally untouched by the weather, the sunlight, or even the passage of time.
It's the ultimate contrast. Up top, the modern surface is bright, chaotic, ever-expanding. But just below, the subterranean ruins are dark, incredibly claustrophobic, and entirely frozen in time. As we peel back the concrete today, we aren't just looking at dirt and rocks. No, we're looking at a physical timeline of human ambition, desperation, and tragedy, stacked layer by fragile layer into the deep clay of the Thames Basin.
So it really begs the question, what if London is hiding far more beneath its streets than anyone actually realizes? We tend to think we know the city because we can navigate its surface, but the true depth of its secrets, it's staggering. We're going to take this journey layer by layer, digging downward through time. Let's start just beneath the pavement, right into the era of Victorian expansion and early industrial ambition.
Okay, let's dive into this. Layer 1, the frozen underground ghost stations.
So long before modern commuters were swiping their transit cards, the early underground was kind of this wild experimental maze. Over the decades, as routes shifted and modern engineering took over, certain branches and stations were just sealed off, abandoned. Today, stations like Aldwych, Down Street, and the Old British Museum station are sitting there completely locked up. Inside, you've got these peeling vintage advertisements from literally a century ago, still clinging to the curved tiled walls. Forgotten wooden ticket booths sitting totally empty, coated in a thick, heavy layer of subterranean dust. To actually walk through these ghost stations is a deeply eerie sensory experience. The air is so stale, the silence is incredibly heavy, and the echo of that forgotten era is just perfectly frozen in time.
And get this, it wasn't just human passengers moving through the dark down there. Just beneath the surface sits the secret mail rail. This was a wildly complex layout of entirely forgotten tunnels built specifically for underground mail transport, weaving this massive web right beneath the modern streets. Now, while parts of this intricate system have been repurposed into modern utility hubs, huge sections remain completely abandoned. Just imagine this, an industrial, driverless train system, which, by the way, actually carried over 4 million letters a day at its peak, weaving blindly through the pitch black beneath the city, entirely disconnected from the world above. Wild, right? But here's the thing. The ghost stations and those utility tunnels, that's really only the very first layer of this abyss. As we descend even beneath those forgotten transport hubs, what highly classified secrets of survival are buried deeper in the heavy, chilling earth? Because when the skies above London rained fire during the 20th century, the deepest layers of the city were called upon not for transport, but for absolute survival and high-stakes military strategy.
Let's move deeper into the abyss with Layer 2, classified wartime command bunkers.
To survive the Blitzkrieg and the looming, terrifying threat of the Cold War, engineers had to dig even deeper. They created these heavily reinforced, deeply claustrophobic spaces. We're not just talking about makeshift shelters here. These were fully operational, secret military spaces built for wartime command, defense, and keeping the government running. Buried fortresses like the Churchill War Rooms and the Kingsway Exchange were constructed with meters-thick concrete and reinforced steel. They were designed to withstand heavy aerial bombardment and, later on, the horrifying prospect of nuclear fallout. I mean, the psychological state of the people working inside must have been incredibly intense. Cut off from daylight, breathing recycled air, constantly listening to the muffled thuds of bombs destroying their city right above their heads, these operators and strategists literally held the fate of the free world in these damp, heavy, subterranean chambers.
But here, actually, Here is where the story takes a truly dark turn. What did the Victorian transit engineers and later those wartime bunker architects actually find when their massive iron shields and shovels dug even deeper into the unstable, ancient soil of the Thames Basin? Because, spoiler alert, they weren't the first ones to use the earth beneath London. Not even close.
Which brings us to Layer 3, ancient ruins and mass plague pits.
You see, when you dig deep enough into a city that is over 2,000 years old, you inevitably strike the foundations of the dead. It's like a giant, messy puzzle, where progress violently intersects with history. And this brilliantly illustrates that clash. The aggressive expansion of 19th century Victorian transport literally sheared right through fragile 1st century Roman Londinium infrastructure. Their picks and shovels just smashed through the foundations of ancient Roman bathhouses, crushed the subterranean walls of the old Roman amphitheater, and dug directly into the mass plague pits of the 14th century, resting just above them. That relentless industrial expansion violently disrupted the ancient sites and the thousands of graves stacked within the earth.
Navigating this subterranean environment was quite frankly a waking nightmare for the engineers. The steps to expand the city downward were treacherous. Workers would breach the modern city foundations only to immediately strike horrifying 14th century plague graves. Then they had to frantically reinforce their tunnels against the fragile, collapsing layers of ancient Roman masonry just inches below that. Ultimately, to keep the transport lines moving on schedule, many of these staggering historical discoveries were hastily documented, walled up, and sealed right back into the darkness, so the industrial tunneling could just keep plowing forward.
The human experience of this work is genuinely chilling. Take this haunting account from a Victorian tunnel laborer. The earth gave way to bone and dust. We realized we were tunneling through a city of the dead. I mean, can you imagine? Picture being a worker in the 1800s operating by the dim, flickering light of a gas lamp in the absolute silence of a deep tunnel, only for your pickaxe to suddenly break through into a massive, forgotten chamber filled entirely with human remains. The daily psychological fears these laborers faced, surrounded by the literal physical weight of centuries of death, it's just unimaginable.
So the absolutely crucial point here is grasping the sheer scale of this history. 100,000 plus. That is enough people to fill a massive modern sports stadium to the brim. And that is the staggering number of victims estimated to be buried in the mass Black Death plague pits that the London Underground weaves through today. This isn't just dirt holding up the trains, folks. It is an immense subterranean graveyard. It's kind of this dark historical irony that millions of commuters today get frustrated by a 3-minute train delay, completely unaware they are speeding directly through a city of the dead of staggering proportions.
To truly understand the emotional impact of uncovering London's hidden history, we really have to humanize these victims. Listen to this 14th century letter fragment. It reads, "Lord, have mercy upon us, for the earth beneath our homes can hold no more of our beloved dead." These bones weren't just obstacles for Victorian engineers to dig through. These were desperate families, entirely overwhelmed by a crisis so severe they simply ran out of earth to bury their loved ones. It brings a profound, deeply tragic weight to the soil resting right beneath the city.
Which brings us to the ultimate unknown. With so many unmapped sealed entrances, walled-off Victorian discoveries, and unexplained acoustic echoes reported by deep-level workers even to this day, what dark mysteries continue to lie completely undiscovered down there in the abyss? The history we already know about is staggering, but the forensic evidence suggests we have really only scratched the surface.
These final subterranean mysteries are this fascinating blend of hard archaeological forensic evidence and whispered urban myth. We know for a fact there are unmapped, sealed tunnel entrances and forgotten hidden chambers deep in the bedrock. Spaces intentionally hidden by governments, or maybe simply abandoned by early private rail companies. When workers report unexplained sounds and acoustic echoes bleeding through the tunnel walls, it really makes you wonder. Are these just the shifting of old, fragile Roman soil? Or are there massive, hollow voids still waiting down there in the dark?
And that right there is what I want you to take away from this explainer today. London might be one of the loudest, busiest cities on Earth, but beneath the noise, the chaotic traffic, and the millions of oblivious footsteps lies a frozen, silent city of the dead, abandoned bunkers, and ghost transit lines. So the next time you walk down a city street, take a second, look down at the pavement, and ask yourself, what forgotten history are you stepping on right now? Thank you so much for exploring the abyss with me.